You have small cell carcinoma, Mr. Brooks. Those words changed everything. 4.5 years later, my husband loses faith and life. Cancer is more than a disease. It's a verdict delivered without judge or jury, a sentence passed without trial. It devastates lives, families, friendships, and careers. Young, old, male, female, rich, poor, here, there, everywhere. In this powerful conversation, cancer survivor Deb Krier shares her own battle with multiple diagnoses, offering hope and wisdom through her initiative, Trying Not to Die. She describes the raw reality of cancer, from the unexpected kindness of strangers to the complex maze of medical advocacy. This isn't just about survival. It's about finding the light in the darkest moments, building a community of support, and learning to live fully despite uncertainty. And now, Deb Krier. Hey everyone, Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. I am about to talk with Deb Krier, and I'll ask her to tell us a little bit about herself, what she's doing, and where she's going. Take it away, Deb.
Oh my gosh, we are going to have so much fun. We were laughing about our pre-chats and how much fun we were having with those. Well, I tell people I do a lot of stuff. But the big thing is I am a survivor, I am a thriver, and I am a warrior, not by choice, right? Actually, you choose that, right? But it wasn't something that 10 years ago I would have gone, hello, I want to be diagnosed with cancer. Because that's what happened back in 2015. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was one of these things where initially I was diagnosed at stage 0, which meant, let's not worry about it too much. Couple months later, after we did some more tests and things along the line, and a couple, little surgeries, discovered, oh no, it was actually stage 0. And then, a little bit later, another test said stage 4. And so my official diagnosis is triple positive, stage 4 metastatic triple positive breast cancer. What a mouthful. But, because I like to be special child, right? I had complications. I only had one big dose of chemo. It was supposed to be obviously a multi-course thing. And I got a reaction that less than 1% of the people who get it, get this reaction. At that point, I was the only person who ever survived it. But my doctor had someone who had the same reaction. And so she knew what was going on. They rushed me into emergency surgery, but I still developed septic shock, which is, quite often totally fatal. Totally fatal? Can you be halfway fatal? That's kind of weird.
Totally fatal.
Yeah, and it's
probably fatal.
Yeah, that was it. I haven't had enough coffee yet today. That's my problem. So ended up in the hospital for 7 weeks, lots of surgeries, lots of complications that will last the rest of my life. My kidneys were pretty severely damaged because septic shock attacks your organs. It was very bizarre because the doctors argued over how fast I was going to die that day. And I very distinctly remember thinking, wait a minute, I get to vote in this. Now, my husband said the conversation was a little bit different, but he said that really was, the gist of what was going on. But, got out, and I had chosen to do the traditional approach to cancer. And for everybody, it's totally different. And that's one of the things I tell people is you have to pick what you think is going to work for you. And so I did choose traditional. I was going to do chemo, then I was going to do surgery, then I was going to do radiation. So I had a double mastectomy. I chose to not do reconstructive surgery. I'm old and I'm like, and I was like, who wants to mess with that? But I, of course, had a complication that my surgeon had never seen. It's like, oh, for heaven's sakes, sailed through radiation. I mean, like, you would have never known I'd had it. And it had worried the doctors because I'm very fair skinned. I get sunburned when I go to the mailbox. And really, I had no issues. And, just kind of was going back and forth in the process, discovered, a couple of years ago that I had basal cell carcinoma, which if you're going to get skin cancer, that's the one you want, because it is pretty easy just to deal with it as long as you're dealing with it early, right? And then last summer was diagnosed with, or, a year ago now, summer, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, which was a totally new cancer. So I'm on number 3. We're not, no 3 strikes were out. 3 strikes were still going. So they removed my thyroid. And because we caught it so early, I didn't have to have any treatment based on that. But in amongst all of this, my business coach of all people tells me, you didn't go through all of this without using it to help others. And so we created an initiative called Trying Not to Die.live. And we're just having a great time with it. It's all about helping those who are on their cancer journey, whether they are the patient, and I hate that word, or somebody who supports them, whether it's their family, their caregivers, friends, medical people, anywhere along there, because we all know, and I know that you are one of these people, our caregivers are our superheroes. It's just, what can we do to help our superheroes to get through this? Because they get forgotten during all of this process. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Quite a story. Quite a story. All types of advocates are superheroes. Always forgotten along the I was my father's advocate, my husband's advocate, and I look around my house and I'm like, and who's going to be my advocate?
I know.
I don't think I've got one, unless I come up with a talking dog.
You might. I mean, you never know where technology and AI are going to get us.
Maybe I'll be able to get a robot. There you go.
This is true. Yeah. Oh, that'd be fun.
That would be very fun. Hopefully it would be, wait. CP3, which one was the really?
C3PO. That,
was that the popular, was that the polite one? Or was that the bling blang bloom one?
Now I'm drawing a blank. Let's see. I think C3PO was the gold guy the rude guy.
Well, so he was rude, but he was sometimes very popular because he always said, sir.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, sir. No, sir.
Yes. He always had the answers. In any case, I don't know how it was your husband who was your advocate?
Yes. Could not have done it without him. Just, and especially when I was so very ill, they actually went to him 3 different times and said, we just don't think it's going to happen. And so he was there the whole time in doing stuff and taking care of things that, of course, he never, ever had thought he was going to have to do. And I think that's one of the things too about our caregivers is that's not what they signed up for. And
sickness and in health.
This is true. And we
many times.
Yes. Yes.
I was like, yo, Joy, in sickness and in health. And this happens to be the sickness part.
Right.
So trip.
Yeah. And then treasure the health parts.
Yeah. When my husband passed away, I went through the guilt phase. It was the first 6 months. I should have done this. I could have done that. I can't believe I did this. I should never have done that. Oh, why not? I should have. And I wrote it out on paper. I joined a memoir group, and I just wrote it all out on paper.
I love it.
And after I finished writing, and I was like, you know what? I really did the best I could. And I did a few really horrible things. And I'm going to laugh them off right now because what was I? I am not like, I didn't go to
right.
school. I had instantaneous, bedside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on the job training or lack of, right?
Very
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there was a lack of,
Mm-hmm.
and I did as much as I could with food
Mm-hmm.
because that's my superpower. Whenever
Ah,
something was wrong, I was like, "You want a piece of cheesecake? You want a hot dog?" Because his favorite foods, whatever it
yes.
was,
I
you
love it.
wanted
I love it. Oh my gosh.
potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
It was that was how
Comfort
I.
foods, right? And they're called comfort foods for a reason.
That's how I tried to fix everything. He knew that. He
Mm-hmm.
appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, at the end of that little journey, I realized I think he knew
Mm-hmm.
that I did my best.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Right.
think, like every cancer patient, there is so much guilt that
Mm-hmm.
the cancer patient goes through.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we do always, there's that little thing. Could I have done something different? Did I cause this? And that answer's no. I don't care if you smoke 2 packs a day, lived under a power line, any of those various things. It's not something we would bring on ourselves. But we also feel really bad for what it means to everybody else, whether it's our coworkers, but of course, obviously to our family. Things that we had planned, we may never get to do because of things, but it is, there is a lot of guilt that goes along with it. And then when we get, snippy, because sometimes we get snippy, then we feel really bad, right? I remember I told my husband one time, he had been changing some bandages. And for whatever reason, that tape was stuck like they had super glued it. And so I was in tears. I mean, it was just and I remember telling him at some point, I'm going to be doing this to you. And of course, that's horrible, right? And I apologize profusely later. But, it really was one of those things where, we say things, because it's like there's the saying, right? You always hurt the ones you love.
Yeah.
And even if we're just, I feel guilty because I need a nap or, I can't do what it is that I want to do. And somebody told me, they said, you need to give yourself grace. You absolutely have to give yourself grace.
That's really something. That's the big world
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
We all to give ourselves a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of grace.
Mm-hmm.
When that moment hits where your mouth is moving faster than your
Mm-hmm.
brain,
Mm-hmm.
you sometimes need to say, wait, well, what am I about to literally stop in the middle of a
Right.
sentence
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and say, do I really need to say this? Because
Right.
maybe I don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
difficult. It's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially when you're in pain, when you're sick, all of these various things, because all of a sudden the world revolves around us, right? And, and it's funny because I am an only child. And so I tell people I never learned how to share, but I, it's, it's the name of our initiative, Trying Not to Die, is partially based on my mother. She, of course, came out when I was so ill. I can't imagine making that phone call. I mean, and it was the middle of the night phone call where my husband told her, "You're probably not going to get here fast enough." And so, and then she stayed for 4.5 months to help care for me. That was fun, but it was actually a huge blessing. I mean, it was huge. But one of the times when one of my medical people, it came in and did something and left, I got the disapproving mother face. Oh my God, what, I raised this. And I said, what? And she said, you did not say thank you. And I said, oh, for God's sakes, Mom, I'm trying to not die. And so that's, that is kind of how we came up with the name, is that we get so caught up in trying to not die that we forget that we have to live. But she had a point. Right? Even at our worst, we can say thank you. We can maybe make somebody laugh. we can, laugh at ourselves, right? Some of what we are going through, you look at it later and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that was what happened. And things like that. And so it is, it's like you said, rather than snipping at somebody, maybe if we don't say anything if you have to, but tell them thank you. And I think that's one of the things I've learned the most about our caregivers is we absolutely positively have to show our gratitude, because most people don't. And it's, and sometimes they're getting the anger. Sometimes they're just getting, well, it's your job, right? You're supposed to do this. But we can still say thank you. Thank you for cleaning up my bedpan, right? Thank you for, all of these things that people just don't normally even acknowledge them.
Mm-hmm. We do have the right to be angry, frustrated, sad, all of those things. We do have the right to do that. And
it's normal.
And I often say to myself, well, how much time am I going to spend being angry? Because I got things to do.
Right. Yeah. And people are always telling me, oh, you're so happy. You're so positive. Well, I mean, that is a mindset, right? To think about that. I have pity parties. I had a big pity party last week. I was not a happy camper. I was mad at my doctor. I was mad at the insurance company. All sorts of things. I was mad at myself that I hadn't done some checking before I got into this position, and everything will work out. I mean, and that was the other little part in my head that was saying, well, shut up. It'll all work out. But, we have those pity parties. And even if it's just, I need to sit down and rest, and I hate that I have to sit down and rest. So you have those pity parties, and then you pick yourself up, you pull your big girl panties up, and off you go.
Right. It's almost like, Alexa, give me an hour. I got a pity party going on.
Yeah. Can we have a little music for our pity party?
And it's really very important, because you definitely have a choice. The point is that out of anger or frustration, it's an emotion. It doesn't necessarily create an actionable item. You really know the actionable item before you started. The reason why you're frustrated, angry, whatever, is because you just don't want to have to do that.
Oh yeah.
Why am I here? What did I deserve this?
Yeah.
What?
And that was it's really funny throughout this whole thing, except for pain. I've only cried twice. The very first day when I was diagnosed. And then one of the times when I was going back in for yet another surgery. And I remember looking at my husband and saying, what did I do to deserve this? Right. And, and then I cried, and then I felt really bad because he got upset. But it's all part of this process. And I think we have to realize that we have to feel those. I mean, if we hate the people who are angry all the time, right? But the people who are the entire time too, no, that's not normal. We need to feel all those emotions, and they're going to keep coming. It's like grief when you lose someone, right? We can be going merrily along and something will all of a sudden hit you. Maybe you hear a song that was his favorite, or, and it could be years later. And, it's just something that we continue, because we have those emotions, and, and obviously that's what makes us human and all that, but it's okay to have those emotions.
Those moments can be bittersweet. I like to use that term because I think of chocolate and being all warm and fuzzy. But life is very often bittersweet. Everything that happens is bittersweet. There are moments where I'm walking around in my house, and this is perfect. Yesterday, outside, giving my dog a bath. It's relatively nice weather in New York. So I was like, let's give the dog a bath outside. I don't have to muck up the inside, get hair in the drains. So I go outside, and I've got the hose, and I'm trying to disconnect the hose from the sprinkler and hook it up. Well, it wouldn't come on.
Of course.
I'm like, you see, Harry? You see, Harry? And that's the first thing I did. I went to my husband. I'm like, I really need you now. So I'm wailing away at that. sprinkler and that
Mhm.
hose until the point I just took them. It would not disconnect. And if I invited a guy over, maybe, but I was wailing away with a
Yes.
hammer. Shove it. I'm like, next year I'll get a new hose and sprinkler. That's it. And I'm like, okay, it's time to give you a bath. And I say, how am I going to do this? I need a sprinkler. So I got the big old water jug that I used to water the flowers with. I said, fill it up, sprinkle. Fill it up, sprinkle. It's not the perfect solution, but it'll work.
It
and
worked.
Don't take it out of the dog. And that was the end of the
Yes.
like, oh, well, hello, the end.
Well, and I think one of the things you're pointing out is we got to be flexible, right? Okay, well, and one of my favorite sayings is, and I saw this recently, and it's become my new favorite saying. Just because Plan A doesn't work, just remember there's a lot more letters in the alphabet, right? And so we just and I'll be honest, part of the time, when I'm feeling a pity party, I will see a commercial for St. Jude's Children's Hospital, right? Oh my gosh, a parent with a child that is ill now, or a veteran who is, that has had an amputation or something. And I always think, oh, honey, you got nothing compared to those people. And so, but we don't want to dismiss our feelings, right? Because they are real. I can feel bad that I hurt and that I need to nap and that I can't eat steak, right? And so, all of these various things, but, so what? And one of my other things that I tell people is, at least I'm not looking up at 6 feet of dirt, right?
I think that, that being the bottom line, sometimes it's not meant to be a pun. It's a showstopper for a lot of people because it's a big fear. It's a big fear. And my husband asked the radiologist, with the cancer that I have, what's the prognosis? So the doctor looked at him and said, you've got 5 years. And I thought to myself, I don't think the doctor should have said that. Because I looked at my husband and I saw all the gears and, everything go, everything. And I had a choice at that point. Make this time the best or give up.
Right.
And he gave up. He gave up.
Yeah.
He gave it 6 months. He gave it all for 6 months. And after that, I think he made a decision and honestly, I don't know what was going on inside of him other than it was in the middle of COVID. He had to go to the doctor alone. Don't know. They said that he was in remission. I don't know what's going on. So I could see that he gave 6 months his all, and then he was preparing to die. And I did not know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And that's the basic guilt that I have. And I'm thinking, what were you supposed to do? Like say, well, what suit do you want to wear at your funeral? And was I supposed to share with him? No, I tried to lift him up every single time.
Right.
But
yeah, and that's where it is such a challenge. It's been 35-ish years or so. I worked for an oncologist. And I also worked for the American Cancer Society, right? So I know enough just to really be dangerous about all this. But the oncologist that I worked for was fabulous. Now I was his office staff. It seems like I have medical training now because I can speak that language pretty good. But I was his office staff. And I remember he would tell patients when they were first diagnosed, 99% of this is in your brain. If you think you are going to recover, you will recover. It might be 5 days. But he said, but if you think you're going to die, then you will die. And he was, it was very much for him what your mindset was. I lost my mother in March, and I firmly believe that she decided, done. because she and I had on a Monday, we had the funniest phone call. And she and I didn't always get along. And so we had this fabulous phone call, and we'd had a really good Christmas. So that was good. On Tuesday, she went to her praise and prayer group. She went to Walmart. She went and had lunch, all these things. And on Wednesday by noon, she was gone. I mean, it was we were in Las Vegas. It was the strangest thing in the world. And I think she was, just, okay, I'm done. I'm done. And she had told us with some things. Now, she was 91 and almost totally blind, which, everything I go through, I can't imagine being blind. That would be one of the harder things. But she would say to us, now, this is the last time I'm doing X. Well, she's 91 and blind. It was kind of like, well, probably. So nobody thought too much of it. But I think it really was, she was checking stuff off. And, and then that day, and like her medical power of attorney had been that you will do everything you possibly can for as long as you can. And I thought, I don't know if I would have followed that or not, because I wouldn't have wanted her to have suffered. But that morning, and she obviously had a massive heart attack. That morning she signed a DNR and said, nope. And so I think she had reached the point where she was at peace with where things were. And she was just ready to be done. And, and I didn't talk to her. She was in Kansas. And like I said, we were in Las Vegas. And, she and I had that really good call on Monday, and I'm glad that that's the last memory that I have of her. But yeah, and I don't care what it is in life. If you decide this is going to go well, it will go well. If you think, then it goes, right?
Even in retrospect, you can say that, oh, this was the worst situation. And then you can be convinced otherwise. And then you think, well, you know what? This was a bad situation, but this happened.
Right.
And suddenly your perspective shifts. Because there's at least 5 different ways of looking at the same thing. And I'm the biggest one to say, really it is. It's about your perception.
Right.
And you can make anything better. The person that's always happy, okay. But the person that is, if they're always happy, bless them.
I'm like, what are you on, and can I have some?
Yeah. And I know a few people like that. Are you? That's fine. What's going on? Oh, you're doing? Like,
and they're probably the most unhappy people around, but
it may not be. They just, I call them very simple people, and I think that there are some very simple people.
Yeah. And you know what? If that gets them through life, good on them.
They basically just, it's simple. I'm the one that sees everything as the diamond, and I'm looking at it 5 different ways this Sunday. And I get stuck. All through my life, I've realized, don't get stuck. You did it when you were young. Don't get stuck. Move on.
Right.
Because if you can't fix it right now, then, okay, you can fix it. What else can I do that I can fix?
Right. Well, and I try and make it funny if I can, right? Because obviously humor, there's a lot of very beneficial reasons for humor. It increases our endorphins. It helps lower blood pressure. I mean, all sorts of stuff like that. But, I mentioned I did not have reconstructive surgery. Now, women's clothes are made for you to have bosoms, right? And I have discovered, I know women who are very flat chested, just normal, but it seems to bother people. It's kind of like, they that's the first place they look. And when we were 20, that was fun, but now it's like, but so I decided to have prosthetics. And this is this whole big process, right? I actually have prosthetics that my insurance paid for. And to go and be measured, I mean, it's just this whole bizarre thing. And then and they tell you, because people said, well, did you change sizes? Right. That's what I'm like, and I said, no. And it actually, one of the things they say is your body was made for a certain size, and so I got those prosthetics, and they're uncomfortable. They're made out of this material that's hot and sticky and all that. And then I found a nonprofit called Knitted Knockers. And that's exactly what they are. They're these knitted knockers. They're these little pillows. They're the cutest little things in the world. And so me being me, they're named, right? And so my ones that I don't really like are Thelma and Louise, because they're pretty serious, right? And my fun ones are, of course, Lucy and Ethel. And you know, and I have people who actually say, "Hey, I see you got Lucy and Ethel today," and other people are like going, "What is she talking about?" But you know, yeah, you got to have fun with it. And I tell people, you know, if I have my boobs and shoes on, you know, it's an important thing. You know, but yeah, how can you have fun with it? You know, it's just, and how can I make the staff laugh? You know, I don't know where this came from. Somewhere I decided that my name was going to be Anastasia Beaverhausen. And I think somebody said that's a name from a character in Will and Grace. But so Anastasia Beaverhausen. And so, you know, when you're going for all your medical stuff, what is your name and date of birth? And now I know that they have their forms. And so I always tell them the right information. But then I say, but you may refer to me as Anastasia Beaverhausen. And, you know, and now sometimes I don't, because I can tell they're not going to get it. So, you know, I just don't even try. But in the infusion room, because I go every 21 days for treatment, I have a port in my shoulder. And so I go in and so of course they know me very well there. I've outlasted all the staff. But they have decided that I am Princess Anastasia Beaverhausen, right? And so I need to get a crown. I've got to go in with a crown on, or a tiara. And so, but you know, like I know, yeah. Earlier this year, I had to have kidney stones removed again for the 5th time. Yay. And that was actually surgical procedure number 34. 34 surgeries. And so I had told them that I'm Anastasia Beaverhausen, right? And so as they've got me in my bed and they're wheeling me down the halls of the hospital to the surgical room, I'm waving like the queen, right? Doing my queen wave. And the funny thing was, all the people I went past waved back. And I'm pretty sure they were thinking, oh, she's got the happy juice going already. But, right, you know, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning and I was making people laugh. Why not?
I think I annoyed the hell out of my sister by being that type of person, but
Yeah.
that is my reaction to everything. It's my reaction to everything.
Right.
I make people laugh.
You know when you need to be serious, right? I mean, now sometimes I don't always, and they look at me, I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. And so, but yeah, if I can make them laugh, you know, I was in one time for surgery and I'm jibber jabbering along like I always am. Now, that surgeon had done multiple procedures on me, and so he and I were just kind of laughing. But I hear one of the nurses say, oh dear, she must be nervous. Because I was chatty, right? And I said, well, I am, but I know y'all are going to take good care of me. But more important, you guys have a really serious job. Can I make you laugh? You know, and so, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, or even just, you know, making people laugh, saying thank you, even simple things like acknowledging, you know, hey, that's a great, you know, one of the, you know, like the, you know, shirt that you've got on today, or, you know, the surgical thing, they always have their own little things to cover their hair that are personalized. I talk about those. You know, now, having said all of that, I also know that there are times where the anesthesiologist knocks me out early to shut me up. You know, it's like, nope, done with her. You know?
Turn that up a notch.
Yep. I was snipping at him one time and walk. Yep.
I do that in, I mean, I tend to be chatty Cathy wherever I go.
Yeah.
So when I'm at the food store, I'm talking to people. When I'm
how you doing? What's going on? Yeah.
That's just the way I am. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm the most social person in the world. And it's kind of odd because I'm not the most social person in the world. But there have been people that have told me, you ought to be a comedian. And I'm like, I ought to be. I thought I was.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Like, no, you mean you want me to do it on stage?
Be paid for it?
No, I don't want to do that. No, I'm having too much fun doing what I'm doing. So, hence the podcast. But so tell me a little bit about the group that you started and the people in it and what you do and what is it? Tell me what type of an.
Thank you so much. So again, it's tryingnottodie.live, and that is the website, www.tryingnottodie.live. And it's got great resources. It's got our blog posts, all sorts of things there. But we do have a Facebook group, and it's a private group. But I let anybody in. It's more that I know. But I do ask a couple questions. Now, I don't say what type of cancer do you have or anything. That's not my business. But I ask just enough questions so that I can weed out the people who are going to cure us, right? They've got their protein drink that's going to cure us. I'm like, no, you don't get to be part of my group. Now, if you're somebody who might say, I can help with meditation. Some people might not like that. I think that's great. Because I think, as I said, we have to find what works for us. But yeah, so we've got this Facebook group. It's designed to support each other. One of the things that several times I have had people tell me is they have never felt so alone in their lives when they're going through this. Now, a big part of that is we do that to ourselves. Joy, how you doing today? Fine. We don't want to say the world sucks, because we don't want to whine. We don't want to complain. We don't want to upset them, so we just say we're fine.
We have a cold, we tell them all about it. But if we get cancer, it's like, fine, I'm fine.
Yeah. I tell people fine is a bad F, it's one of those bad F words, right? Yeah. And so the group is a place where people can share. And, I remember one week where we had someone who posted that she had been to her doctor and all of her scans were great. So we, right? And then the next day somebody posted and said, I lost my husband overnight. And so then we were all very supportive of that. One of the things, and I don't know if you found this with your husband, is people who I thought would be the most supportive dropped off the face of the earth when I told them what was going on. I don't know if they couldn't handle it. I obviously that friendship had run its course, right? But there were several like that. But there were also people who I didn't even think knew I existed, who have been some of my biggest supporters. And, and that's the thing is now I tell people I am a warrior. And part of that is, somebody sent me this thing that said, and it is the motto for our, everything we do. Fate says to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm. And the warrior responds, I am the storm. And so we are the warriors. But the really important thing, and this circles us back to what we were talking about at the very start, is warriors don't go it alone. They have to have their tribe. And, and so how do we build that tribe? How do we get the people around us that we need? We have to be our own advocates. And that's a big part of what we talk to people about is you are the one in charge. And if for some reason you're not able to be, then you have to have a designate. They have to know what you want, all of those things. But I have fired doctors through this process. Now, were any of them malpractice type of things? No. Some of them I just didn't get along with. And I'm like, okay, if you're not going to get me, then, but others, there were some that were very good doctors. We just didn't hit it off, or I didn't like the treatment that I received. And so, I've changed doctors several times, all sorts of things. But yeah, we have to build our tribe around us. And let's be honest, folks, we need to do that all the time. I think we saw, especially when COVID hit, we became these little isolated people. And that I was fine for about a week and a half. And then I'm like, oh my God, must get out of this house. And so, who is going to support us? You mentioned it. You might not have an advocate. Well, let's, how can we work on that now? And find those folks and get the right people around us, and those that we don't want around us, it's okay. Wish them well and send them on their way.
Yeah. It's, I learned that during Superstorm Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much during COVID, well,
Mm-hmm.
because I'd already learned the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
But after Superstorm Sandy, and my friends didn't show up,
Mm-hmm.
and strangers did,
Mm-hmm.
I realized, isn't this interesting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't this interesting?
Right. Well, and we have to give them grace because we don't know why they don't show up. When I was first diagnosed, I went to the doctor by myself because I didn't think this was going to be a big deal. So of course, immediately contact my husband. I don't remember if I contacted my mother or waited, but I texted my best friend who lived back in Colorado, and she didn't respond. And I thought, well, it's the weekday. She's probably working, yada, yada, yada. Texted her again. Still didn't get a response. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe I texted the wrong number, all these various things. And then my little feelings were hurt, right? And I got a text from her, and it was, it seemed like forever. Now it's probably a couple hours, right? And her text message was, I'm having trouble dealing with this, but give me a little bit. The next day, she responded, and she said, okay, what do you need? She came out here twice, also, I'm in Atlanta. And so, all of those things. But yeah, you don't know what they're going through. A friend of mine visited me in the hospital, and she came in and she burst into tears and left the room. And I'm thinking, oh my God, do I look that bad? Right. And I did. I looked really bad. But, and she went out in the hall and composed herself, and she came back in and she said that morning her mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so it just was overwhelming to her. And so, yeah, we don't know what somebody else is going through. And maybe they just don't want to be around somebody who's sick, right? I don't always want to be around somebody who's sick either.
I mean, there's a difference between somebody's got a cold, which, by the way, you're like, okay, well, don't sneeze in my face.
I know. Where are the masks again when we need them, right?
With somebody who says, I've got cancer now, you're like, what do I say to that? You say, you say immediately, oh, I'm sorry. And you're like, what kind of a response was that?
But that's okay. That's a good response. Better than nothing.
The truth is, I don't know what to say.
Right.
That's the I have no idea what to say because I'm looking at you and you're in your head thinking whatever you're thinking, and I'm looking at the Grim Reaper, and I don't know what to say to the Grim Reaper.
Right. And we don't want to upset somebody by saying, how are you doing? Right. But that elephant is there in that room. So, it's okay to go ahead and address it and just say, I don't know what to say. Tell me what, and we will say, I'm good, or I need to tell you this, or can you go to the grocery store for me, or whatever. But it's, just don't. And I had a lot of people who said we didn't know what to say. And I said, you know what? Hallmark has cards.
A blank one with a pretty face on.
Just and I still have them. I have a box of all my cards that I got. I don't know, at some point I need to do something. I mean, it's not like I'm going to make a craft project or something out of them. I'll probably read them one more time and then consign them to the recycle bin. But yeah, I mean, that was, my husband would bring them to the hospital every day and we'd look and, but yeah, Hallmark has cards.
And stuffed animals too.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You behind you.
I do. And it's funny. I had two that were in the hospital with me that friends sent. And it was, and they're those little like 4-inch tall stuffed animals. They went with me everywhere except surgery. But they went with me everywhere throughout the hospital. But it reminded me I was not alone. Plus they came in really handy when whoever would be there with me, my mom, my husband, whoever. And if I was trying to get their attention and they were asleep, I could chuck them at them. My husband would wake up and have to be surrounded. He's like, what? But yeah, just it's a sweet little gesture just to send somebody a stuffed animal or, an angel token that they can put in their pocket or, all these little things that you think might be kind of silly. I have them all. I have kept all of them. And they're all like right here. Like I've got, this little thing that has a flower on it, a bell, right? Little bell. And it's a keychain, right? And I finally had to take it off of things because it was like it catting me, right? But several other things that are in here, and yeah, I mean, it's just, and you think it's silly, but it shows somebody that you were thinking of them.
Yeah. I'd say to people who are uncomfortable with cancer and who isn't, like I said, I think it's really any there are a lot of diseases that people look at that are fatal, right? Cancer is one of them that can be instantly,
Right.
You think death, it may not be fatal, but you think death. And I think that people just need, I don't know what it is that they need to realize. They get uptight and they can't deal with it, so they don't.
Right. And then we think they don't love us.
Right. And I don't know how to, that's why advocacy is so important. And I'm not a nurse. I don't like needles. I don't like germs. But as soon as somebody tells me they're sick, I immediately go into advocacy. I am not Florence Nightingale, but I immediately go into advocacy. They're like, what do you need? Do you need me?
Right.
And, I've had a number of people in my life that have gotten cancer, and I've gone through advocacy mode, and they're like, listen, it's not that I don't want to talk with you. It's not that I don't care. I just don't want to deal with this at all with my friends and family. And if I don't talk to you as much as you would like me to, I'm sorry. And they haven't dropped out of my life. I mean, they passed away, but it was something that they had to do. And some people need to do that. Some people cannot. It's not that they close the doors. They just say, I've got 50 people in my life, and I'm going to only deal with 5.
Right. And like you said, cancer, most people associate with they're going to die. Well, maybe they don't want to go through that. They don't want to accept that we're going to die, right? And so it's just easier to distance themselves.
Yeah. It's just, gosh, it's just the perfect storm, and some people can weather it and some people cannot.
Right.
And the people who have it versus the people that are advocating for it, or the friends or the family members, it's just quite an experience.
Right.
Experience. Yeah. And if we could do it, let's put it this way. If you're the family member that's having a tough time with it, don't be afraid to go for help.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Whether that's professional help, your minister, whoever. Yes.
Because you shouldn't live in guilt that you didn't, you should have, you obviously you couldn't. And if you need to know why that happens, then, go for help. If you just want to close up on yourself, I'd say go for help, because that's not a good idea. Close up on yourself. The point is that you're probably going to deal with death more than you think. I have.
Yeah, we've reached that age, right?
I have a sad story. I was married in February 25th of 1995. March 12th, my mother died.
Oh, no.
I'm 95. April 14th, 15th, my father died. 1995. June, my husband pulled his back in the worst way at work and could not work in that field ever again. So the honeymoon was clearly over before it
Right. 1995 just sucked.
It sucked in a big way. And I remember going to the doctor because my mother died in Florida. We had to bring her body up, funeral. My father, my sister, and my brother-in-law brought my father up. Dad was 80, Mom was 75. Dad was a diabetic. So we just took Dad to the doctor, and the doctor saw him and then said, to my sister and myself, come on in. And the doctor said, this is going to be very difficult. The worst hasn't happened yet. And I'm like, oh, no.
More?
What is that? He goes, get ready. This is going to be tough. And I took that seriously. And my sister and I had totally different reactions. I went into advocacy mode, and she went into Florence Nightingale mode. What I can do for Daddy when Daddy comes out of the hospital, I'll have everything set up for Daddy. And I was like,
I'll fix it.
Yeah, and I went into, okay, get everything out of their name, sell the car.
Right. Have we got all the paperwork in order?
All the paperwork. I need a lawyer. What's going on? What do we do? How long is it going to last? And we were two separate people.
Right.
And it didn't go well.
Because you wanted her to do something and she wanted you to do something, and it wasn't going to work.
Wasn't going to work. I knew he wasn't coming out of the hospital, and she was, planning the rest of his life. So, and these things happen. Have I made amends with that? As far as I can make amends with that. I can't be everything to all people.
Right.
And I know who I am. And I did what I did, and I probably will do it again. Then then it was, we had a snowstorm one year, and I said to my husband, who was alive, I said, you haven't heard from your brother. I said, normally, phones or visits when you're not, you go to work, he comes by for coffee. Here, I haven't seen him. And he said, well, I've got to go to work because we're having a big snowstorm, and he worked for an oil company, and during the snowstorm, that's when everything's on the deck.
Everybody's there.
And he says, I may not be coming home. I'm like, okay. He goes, you've got to, can you check up on my brother? Like, yes, I can. Well, needless to say, I checked up, and he had passed away overnight. So I found him in the bed, and I phoned the police, and then I phoned my husband, and he came, and he was a wreck.
I bet.
And I was taking care of everything once again.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah. But that's how you cope.
That's how I am. So I know that I go into advocacy mode.
Right.
And I just cope with it. I'm like, what do we need to do? A very odd thing. I don't know if people would do this. I walked into the house. I knocked on the door for his brother-in-law. I'm sorry, my brother-in-law. He didn't answer. I knew that he always kept the door unlocked. So I unlocked, opened the door. The dog didn't meet me. And I'm like, okay, that's a little odd. I walk into the bedroom like, Johnny, and are you up? And he's just laying there in bed. And I'm like, oh, gosh. And the dog's just laying next to him. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So I had to go over. And I had to put my hands on, put my hands on his head. Does he have fever? No, somewhat the opposite.
He was cold.
I was cold, and I was like, okay, this has happened, and not only did it happen, but it happened. So that's when I made the phone call. Did the same to my husband. He for all of our lives, my husband would fall asleep on the couch watching television in the living room. And in the beginning, the first few years we were married, I woke him up.
Yes.
And I would say,
come to bed.
I would say, honey, you've got to get up and go to bed. And he'd look at me and go, I was in bed.
I was asleep. You woke me up.
So I was like, okay, I got to stop doing this. So I stopped doing it. And when he had cancer, I would, it would be 8, 9 o'clock, and I'd be like reading a book. And I'd say, I'm going to go to bedroom, finish reading the book, and I'm going to go to bed, and I'll, blah, blah, blah. So he'd be okay, watch TV, I'd go to bed. Well, usually I would leave him there. I would get up in the middle of the night, have to go to the bathroom, and then I would wake him up because I'd be like, come on, come to bed. Right? You're going to wake up like this. So I got up. It was 12:30. Like, Harry, come on, come to bed. Harry. And then I noticed he was on the floor. So he had gotten up. And I think I probably heard that. That's probably what.
And that's what.
But he was already gone because he had a massive heart attack. And I was, I did the same thing. I'm like, I don't know CPR. And when I called 911, they said, we could show you how to do CPR. And I was like, the man is dead?
Yeah.
Like I know, how do you know he's dead? And I think that they were thinking, what's wrong with this woman? She doesn't want to do CPR on her husband. Yeah. I had felt his temperature, felt for his pulse.
Right.
I had my hand on his chest.
There ain't nothing there.
I tried to pick him up. And there's a term called dead weight. I know what that means. He was dead weight. And I was like, no, he's gone.
CPR ain't going to help.
It's not going to help. So when they came, I mean, I'm sure that was the note. Refuse CPR.
Yes.
So, but when they came, they were like, oh, no, this guy's been dead for a while. And, they basically affirmed that he had passed away around about the time. And I said, how long does it take for, I asked these odd questions. How long does it take for someone to go cold? And they said it happens rather quickly.
Interesting.
He goes, as soon as the blood starts to circulate, the temperature begins to go down.
Right. Yeah, the furnace stops.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, and I there's each death I learned something about myself and the person. I do not look at death as the end in any case.
No. And whether it's angels or spirits or energy or whatever, that's, I choose to believe that their energy is still here. And now here's something weird for you. So we have on the wall behind me on the other side, a whole big wall of family photos, and there's 30 pictures there, at least, maybe even more. And every once in a while, they just leap off. And normally it's been my mother-in-law. She's jumped off several times, different pictures of her. It's the weirdest thing in the world. So, I'm like, okay, is she annoyed? What's going on? And this morning I heard crash thud, right? And I'm like, oh, and it was my grandmother's picture. So I'm wondering, what's going on, Grandma? Am I doing something I need to pay attention to, or, but yeah, I mean, just these pictures randomly fall off the wall, and I have, for people who are listening, I have a tattoo on my arm and it says warrior. And then it has representatives of all my angels. And so like the last tattoo that we added was the sunflower because my mother lived in Kansas. And I put it here on my forearm because I see it when I'm at the doctor or in the hospital and I can touch it. And the really strange thing, now it may just be because of where it is. It's on my, inside my forearm. It's almost always warmer than the other parts of my body. And I choose to believe it's because they're there supporting me.
There you go. I have some unreasonable thoughts that that even myself would be like, oh, that's poo poo, like.
Really?
But I have more people that I have been close to that are gone than I have around me. And I've always, I almost went into, I always appreciate the kindness of strangers, but I always feel as if I'm being surrounded by someone.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I always know, especially when I'm going in for like a procedure, especially if it's, fairly serious, that I'm surrounded by this bubble of support. And whether it's people sending me their thoughts, their prayers, their whatever, but I'm not alone. And I very distinctly remember one time when I was having something done thinking, well, I can't die. They'll all be really mad at me if I do. Right? But yeah, and that's part of how are we getting through this, and it's very individual, right? And so that's what I choose to believe, is that, I've got that support from the living, from those who have passed, and they're just there, and that's what helps me get through it. I know I'm not alone.
Right. I just, is there something that you could say to people that are going through it now? Something, I don't know, positive, negative, I don't know, something.
I think one of the biggest things is we've got to be honest. We have to be honest with ourselves, right? And feel the things that we're going to feel. We have to be honest with our caregivers. How many times when the doctor, the whoever says, "How are you doing?" we say, "I'm fine." And we're not. But that's, person at Starbucks, "How you doing?" "Fine." The doctor says, "How you doing?" "Fine." I mean, it's just our habit, right? No. If things are going really well, okay, tell them that. But, and then for our caregivers and our friends and all of those people, we have to be honest with them. We can't get annoyed that they're not providing the support that we need and want if we haven't been honest and said, "I really need somebody to cook me dinner on Thursday," or "I need somebody to just come and sit with me." All of those things. Nobody's a mind reader. So we have to be honest and, and feel the things that we're going to feel as we go through this, whether it's ourselves or somebody that we love and support. Feel those feelings, give yourself grace, and then, pick yourself up and go on. And sometimes maybe it's an hour, right? You never know. I don't know what my expiration date is. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. My expiration date probably did move up, but, we can't live like that. Even if we're told, well, you have 25% chance that you're going to make it. Okay, whatever. And just keep going.
I think the most important thing is, we look at death and we prepare, but we won't do it when we're healthy.
Right.
And the point of the matter is, you said be honest. If you want someone to come over and play cards with you because you love to play cards and they do too, then just say it. Don't wait for them to invite themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Just say it.
I did, when I'd been in the hospital for so long, one of the things they told me was, you need to get out and get fresh air, right? You needed sunshine, you needed fresh air, you needed to exercise. Well, I was using a walker. And so me toddling around in the cul-de-sac, I could easily go and fall over. So I needed somebody with me, and my husband had gone back to work. And so I put on Facebook, "Hey, for those of you who have been saying, what can we do? I need people to come walk me 15, 20 minutes a day. Leash provided." Right? Because you got to be funny with it. And people, there were days where I'd have 2 or 3 people that said, "Hey, we can come." And then the next day, maybe nobody. But, by telling people, "Here's what I need," then they were able to go, "Oh, okay, I can do that." And I had some of the best walks with people. Sometimes we'd say a whole bunch. Sometimes we just walked, and so, but yeah, be honest with people and let them know, and from the caregiver side or the friend or whoever, ask specifics. Don't say, "Hey, Joy, just tell me what you need." Because our little brains are so befuddled by all of this that we don't know. So say, "Can I bring you dinner? Can I do your grocery shopping? If they've got kids, can I take them to a movie?" All of those things, because then my brain can latch onto that. and say, oh, I don't want dinner Thursday, but can I have lunch on Friday? Things like that. And so ask those specific questions. And if you don't live near somebody, can I have a meal delivered? Can I, whatever it is, just be specific about it.
There you go. That's very good advice. Any last things you want to share with people? For the podcast, by the way, not last things.
Yes, I know, not final. No, yeah. But it is one of these things where it is what we make it. How are you going to live your life? Whether it's 5 hours, 50 years, whatever it is, how are you going to live your life? What is that legacy that we're going to leave? And be conscious and think about that. Don't have your bucket list that you're going to do 25 years from now. Have your bucket list that you're going to do now. And do those things, because you can keep adding to it, right? It's not that there's just a piece of paper. Get out and live your life the best you can. Maybe you can't do an around the world cruise. Okay, go to the museum and learn something. All these various things, but life is what we make it.
And make it sweet. Make it bittersweet.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks,
and I love
Deb.
chocolate.
Bittersweet chocolate, really, it's the best.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you coming on and talking with me, Deb. Thanks so much.
It has been an honor, Joy. Thank you so much for asking me.
You bet. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks.